Hi, I'm Dave,
And I'm Paul.
and we're going to challenge you to transform your financial future through the principles of the most profitable business in the world, banking.
We believe everyone should be involved in two businesses, the business that you're in and the banking business. Everyday people can replicate what bankers have been doing for centuries to leverage capital and build wealth through private lending.
Join us as we uncover the truths about money, expose lies and myths, and flip conventional financial advice on its head. Here we go. All right, Paul, back at it. What's going on?
How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm pretty good, man. I'm just waiting for this weather to warm up. We hit like 80 degrees 2 weeks ago, and then it dropped back down to the 40s, even the 30s. So we've had one baseball practice so far, and we have our first game in 3 days.
Yeah, we're like 4 games in. Our season started on 1 March.
Oh, really? I guess.
Yeah.
See, you can do that out there where the weather's a little more temperate. Here,
Yeah,
it's a crapshoot still all the way until May, even then.
I think we'll hit the upper 30s tonight. Right now it's probably 60, but it's sunny, and
Yeah.
so it's decent baseball weather. Not great, but yeah, we hit 89 the other day. It was hot.
Woo, that's hot.
It was hot.
Yeah, I'm ready for some baseball weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Florida, South Florida, man. It's always baseball weather.
Yep.
Hmm.
I could get used to that.
Yep.
Yeah. What? So before we jumped on here, you were telling me how you're trolling some YouTube sites, commenting on some of those typical financial videos, right?
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. I think most of the people doing these shows, and these guys seem like genuinely good dudes who we would probably enjoy, having a beer with. But I just cannot stand it's just all these videos are just a regurgitation of the same advice over and over and over again. There's nothing fresh. The comment, max your 401k, take the match, max your IRA if you have one. Roth is great. If you have a Roth, 401k, even better, do that. All of the advice involves separating ourselves from our own money. And on the surface, and I said this in my comment, hey, this seems like a great idea. I'm deferring taxes, which means I have, I'm getting more money in my pocket every month because I'm reducing my taxable income. And I used to think like this.
Yeah.
I'm doing all these things that these, gurus, and this has 75,000 views in 3 days. Got a ton of viewage. So there's people just eating it up, and you read the comments, and there's 315 comments, which is a lot. And people are just eating it up like it's the gospel. Like it's just, oh, this is the best advice ever. Oh my gosh. And to me, it's not. Like, how much of that can you spend right now if you had an emergency? Well, none of it, unless you go ask permission, pay a penalty and tax, and then you could have it.
Yeah.
How long is that going to take? And we know there's some custodians in companies that companies, I should say, that don't allow you to take out of your 401k while you're employed there.
Right. It's their choice.
That's right. So anyway, and of course they're not saying don't have an emergency fund. Of course they have that. Oh, you have to have 6 months of your expenses and that's it. And of course that can never be in whole life insurance. So that always has to be in a savings account or a CD or something else.
Yep.
So anyway, it's just, I think everyone wants the same thing. I think this way is old. I think it's outdated. And I have lived both sides of that, right? I've maxed my 401k for many years. So did my wife. And now I'm on the other side of I can do better. I can control my own wealth and I'm more prosperous for that. So,
right.
But I guess for most people none of these people commenting, none of them are going to be wealthy.
No.
And that's our topic today, right? So,
and I'm curious how many of those 75,000 views or any of that information they heard on that video they heard for the first time, and they were like, oh, I'm not doing that. I need to do that. I'd venture to say almost none. So then it begs the question, why are people watching these videos that just regurgitate the same information they've been told for years? Ever since they were an adult, they were told to do this kind of stuff. Ever since they got their first job, they were told this. Nothing's new. So to me, it's like going to a video to reinforce the way you feel and seeing that a lot of other people feel the same way. That makes you feel safer about the choices you're making and more confident in the choices you're making. So just the mere fact that they have to go watch that video in the first place means that they're insecure about what they're doing financially. That's just me psychoanalyzing random YouTube listeners, but that's the way it makes sense to me.
This is not any different than the advice that I got as a young lieutenant when I started with that one company. And again, good people. And I've talked about it before, but just, it was just, I didn't know any better.
Right.
But I always had something in the back of my mind. I was like, well, when I retire from the Army, if I'm 42 years old after 20 years, like I've got all this money in there and I can't touch it, like I definitely have to work still.
Oh, yeah.
Right away.
Yep. You better have a job before you transition. That's right.
It's right. And everyone, that's one of the questions. When you work in the National Capital Region, everyone asks, so you staying in the area? You going to get a job here after retirement? I'm like, dude, I can't.
You're going to get a job, a State Department job, or you're going to, go hired by the government?
You're going to be a GS-13. And that's all fine. We need people to do those things, right? The federal government's the largest employer in the world. And there's a lot of fine people doing certain jobs. There's a lot of waste too, of course, because it's government. But they're always somewhat shocked, I think, when I say, dude, I don't like it here and I can't wait to leave.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, wow. Like, not
going
to do something else.
It's the safe nest in the tree.
It is. It's a nest. It's the trust tree.
It's the trust tree. Man, speaking of, I just got really bad tinnitus in my right ear. It'll go away in a couple seconds.
I get that sometimes.
Yeah.
Turbine engines.
Yeah.
And old age, I think.
That'll do it. Well, so something else you mentioned while you were ranting, the YouTube rant, is you talked about thought, like I thought, or I used to think, or these people think. That's one thing the traditional view never challenges people to do, is think differently. They don't challenge them to think, period. In my opinion, it's follow our generic one-size-fits-all advice. Don't think, because you'll just screw it up, and just do what we say. And frankly, what did Thomas Jefferson said? Like, only 5% of people really think. 15% of people think they think, and 80% of people would rather die than think.
Right.
Yeah.
Was that him?
It was one of those guys. It was one of the founding fathers. Yeah. Maybe it was Ben Franklin.
Yeah, I mean, I like TJ, so
it wasn't a founding father necessarily, but he was a lot of famous quotes.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah,
he was there. But yeah, you're right. It's always the one size fits all, right?
Always.
It's just like, this is the best strategy for everybody all the time.
Yeah. So that whole thinking kind of leads us into what we're going to talk about, because I think what it comes down to is the way you think, right? So we were talking earlier, and we decided, if you really think about it, being poor and staying poor, or even middle class, requires the same effort over your lifetime as becoming wealthy. So let's dive into that, because that might be shocking to some people, because when you think of being poor, like Office Space, man, what would you do with $1 million? Nothing. He's like, you can be poor and do nothing. My cousin's broke and he don't do nothing. So you can be poor and do nothing to an extent, but there's definitely some repercussions. You only get what's given to you. But let's just talk about the person who follows this traditional advice, and maybe doesn't even follow that very well. And they really stay poor or very low middle class, versus somebody who grows their wealth. So you found a good definition of poor. So I guess we need to define this first.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we hit record, and so the definition of poor, and this is on the Apple computer here. What is this? Is it a Webster? I don't know. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's a dictionary built into the software. Anyway, it's lacking sufficient money to live at a standard considered comfortable or normal in a society.
Okay. So that standard is quickly declining in our country. What is comfortable? I feel like the standard of living is certainly declining very quickly, based on income. So let's put that in terms of income, so people have something to go off of. According to a Pew Research study, This is where you fall: low income, middle income, so lower class, middle class, and upper class. It for a family of three. We're talking a household income for a family of three. Low income, or what I might call poor, is less than $52,200 a year. Middle income is between $52,000 and $156,000.
That's such a big difference too. 52
Huge,
to 1.
huge.
It's a huge difference.
That's 3x. Like you're living in completely different sides of town. But upper income, according to the Pew Research study, is more than $156,000. So I'd venture to say anybody who you tell somebody making $160,000 today, your upper income, hey, congratulations, you're in the upper class. They'd look behind you to see who you're talking to, because 160 doesn't feel like upper class. But
and it just did a few years ago, I think.
I know. Right?
Just,
it really did.
Things are, and you're going through a home acquisition, that the cost of, it seems like everything in a way is just, especially real estate. I mean, residential real estate. If you're, building a home or buying a nice home like you are, the prices are astronomical. And the Fed policy really has done very little, at least in certain areas, to make a dent in the damage that they did for the previous 3 years.
So, no, and now they, Biden just created more damage by now penalizing anybody with a good credit score.
Yeah,
when they go get a conventional mortgage. Like, what? Talk about wealth distribution. Like, not even trying to hide the wealth distribution. You did really good. You played by the rules. You followed that plan that you just watched on YouTube that says do this and this and this with your money. You get a good credit score. You start building your 401k. Now we're going to penalize you to make up for Joe Blow over here who didn't do crap, and has a terrible credit score because he doesn't pay his debts. So we're gonna penalize you and give you some of your money to him. So that's, yeah. I mean,
it's a bit infuriating.
Yeah. Luckily, my lender said that doesn't apply to VA loans. So,
well, that's good.
A VA loan is pretty money. If you have access to that, definitely put that to work.
Yep.
So, so let's talk back to why we think being poor or staying poor requires the same effort over your lifetime as becoming wealthy. I kind of compare it to, it's kind of like being unhealthy. So if you ever, you go to the grocery store, you go anywhere these days, you're going to see some pretty unhealthy people. And many of them, it's painful to watch them walk. Like, you can just tell, man, that can't feel good. The way they're walking, maybe they got a hitch in their step, or they're it just doesn't look comfortable. So being unhealthy is very uncomfortable, and it requires immense effort just to get out of a car, walk into a store, walk around to your grocery shop and go home, get in your chair, climb the stairs, whatever. That's a lot of effort for somebody who's carrying around 50 or 100 pounds more than they should, and then it leads to one thing after another, domino effect. It's also a lot of effort to get up early in the mornings and go to the gym for 45 minutes. But in one case, you're putting that effort, you're requiring that effort of yourself up front to prevent that effort being required of you, when you don't have a choice. So it's a little bit of the same thing. That's my analogy, if that's easier to understand for poor versus wealthy.
Yeah. No, I think it's a lot and there's some overlap there with someone's socioeconomic status and their health, isn't there? I think we didn't pull up those stats, but I'm sure you can look into it and see that, generally speaking, that financially stable people who are disciplined savers and don't have a lot of waste are probably generally more healthy, statistically speaking. And that's one of the things that they look at during underwriting is your financial snapshot, your credit. They pull some soft credit, right? Like, all right, you're good. You're at 795. Great. Perfect. Yeah. That's a good indicator for you.
Well, and just to tack on to that, like, inflation is making that even worse, because when you go to the grocery store and you go down like the frozen food aisle, you'll see the price of a frozen pizza isn't all that much more than it used to be. But the price of, fresh meat, fresh produce, chicken, vegetables, organic, anything. Oh my gosh, it's out of reach for somebody who's low income. It just truly is. So they're kind of stuck with what they can afford, which is processed food, which just perpetuates that unhealthy lifestyle. That's yeah, it's just the way it is. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
No, absolutely. And I think to your point about, getting up early and having physical fitness, I equate that to, getting into good habits early in life. And I think having that military, you went to the academy, Air Force Academy, I went to Norwich, and, getting a good base of physical, especially being we were high school athletes and you were a college athlete, but having that basis for physical fitness and that discipline. We were up early, we were up at 5 a.m. every day doing PT, getting smoked, doing whatever we were doing. Likewise, as you get older and you enter adulthood, surrounding yourself with people, and young people have so much access to information more than we ever did. The internet was, it was a thing in the early 2000s, late 90s, but it wasn't as developed as it was now.
Yeah, and what did we drink before football practice? Like a Dr. Pepper and some powdered donuts on the way to practice. And it was just acceptable. It's just what you did. Now,
that's right.
I don't know what I'd do if I saw my kids doing that before practice. Like, whoa.
I watch old Celtics videos on YouTube to show Anthony what real basketball is, because obviously the NBA is complete garbage. And there's one video of Kevin McHale before a game, he's drinking a Coca-Cola Classic before the game.
Well, dudes would smoke during halftime.
No, just crazy, unbelievable. But anyway, that basis of physical fitness, and then as you enter adulthood, surrounding yourself with like-minded people that are interested in other things other than, maxing the 401k. And again, you want to do that, that's totally fine. That's not our jam. We're trying to teach people here how to control their own wealth and secede from that regime completely, if they so choose. But anyway, surround yourself with those like-minded people there's a ton of people that we'll meet that are just doing interesting things, whether it's in real estate or business or some other enterprise, right? But guess what? $3 bills at Walmart, that's, she's not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And another difference is if you're poor or middle class, you're going to be resigned to being forced to work probably later in life. I don't know what the stats are, but there's a lot of retirees that had to go back to work, right? Because they did the traditional thing. They did the typical financial entertainer plan, and it didn't work out quite like they said it would.
No, I don't necessarily think the accumulation strategy, if people were able to accumulate, a lot of the people of our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation had pensions,
right?
Whether it was corporate or government or whatever, and they're still, luckily they have those things. But other people I had a neighbor in Kentucky that I think he had a significant amount of money, but he didn't really have a solid plan for distribution or how he was going to maintain it. Because my opinion was, just if I can amass amount of money, I can put it somewhere and live off interest. If I can,
right?
I had no idea how to do that. I do now, but back then I had no idea how that was going to happen. I just figured, magic, it would just occur, right? But most people are going to run out of money, and then they're going to be on that. You see a lot of people, I see it all the time when I go visit my parents in Florida. And you got to wonder, is it by choice? Sure. Some of them by choice. They just want to be productive, whatever. They have to be careful with Social Security. Obviously, you can't have over a certain, but they just want to stay active, be out in the community. That's fine. But a lot of people aren't there by choice. They're 70 years old, and what are they doing? They're cleaning other people's houses.
Yeah.
Because they have to.
Well, they're not there by choice, but their choices got them there. Yeah. I guess you could say.
Sure. In a sense, for sure.
Yeah.
And again, you can't undercut inflation. You mentioned it. It has really put a dent in the dollar's purchasing power just in the last couple of years. It's been insane.
I hope that never happens as I'm hitting that age of just pure passive income.
Well, what are we in 2023? Well, give it another 13 years. It'll happen again, maybe less.
Yeah. It's almost like it's a cycle.
Yeah. It's almost like there's a cycle with this. Has
happened throughout history. So I I feel the effort required to learn how to become wealthy is the effort you need to put in up front, right? So you may be working your 9 to 5, you come home and, for 2 hours or 3 hours in the evening, what does the average adult watch? Like the average person watches like 4 hours of TV a day or something. Those stats are
Gosh,
scary.
is it that much?
Yeah, I think so. Those stats are scary. I'm making that up, folks, based on something I'm pretty sure I heard, on the radio several months ago, but I don't think that's too far off. So
No.
how about instead of doing that, pick up a book, read Nelson's Becoming Your Own Banker. Dare say even watch some of the videos on infinite banking, but be careful which ones you watch. Read some books on different ways of thinking and viewing money, thinking about money and viewing it. Instead of watching Netflix, right? Or any of the other 30 streaming platforms out there.
That's right.
And see where you are a year from now. 1 year goes by pretty quick. So it does require extra effort. It does.
No doubt. I mean, that's how I kind of started this take back control journey is kind of what I've called it. Back in 2017, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, read a bunch, some Kiyosaki, read Millionaire Next Door, which we were talking about earlier, which is a decent book, and then eventually you sent me Nelson's book, and it's not an accident. People just don't fall into wealth generally. Right.
Right. In fact, funny you say that. I found a national study of millionaires online. This study said, okay, something like 74% of millennials think that millionaires inherited their money. And over 50% of baby boomers think millionaires inherited their money. Here's the truth. From the study of millionaires, the biggest study ever, I think, done of millionaires, only 21% of millionaires received any inheritance at all, period. Just 16 inherited more than $100,000, and only 3% received an inheritance at or above $1 million.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It means most millionaires, the vast majority of them, earned it on their own. It was not given to them. So they did some things right. Maybe they listened to the right people. They thought a little bit differently. Like the book you were just reading from The Millionaire Next Door earlier, and it talked about thinking. So maybe you can, I don't know if you got that quote pulled up.
I do. It's in the preface, actually. And I haven't read this book, Dave, probably since 2017. So it's been about 6 years. But it's a good book. There's some things we disagree with in the book, but it's generally the message is good, right? But the bottom line is, this guy wrote, since 1980, I've consistently found that most millionaires do not have all of their wealth tied up in their stock market portfolios or in their homes. One of the reasons that millionaires are economically successful is that they think differently. Many a millionaire has told me that true diversity has much to do with controlling one's investments. No one can control the stock market, but you can, for example, control your business, private investments, and money you lend to private parties.
Ooh, sounds like private lending.
And I underlined that then before I knew anything.
Before you ever even did your first private loan, right?
Before I did my private loan, I was like, well, that's interesting. But that caught my eye. I underlined it in blue pen. And but it's true. It's a mindset, and I see so much potential in people that I work with that they're afraid. I think there's some fear because maxing out TSP is comfortable. Maxing out my IRA, if you're your Roth or whatever, is comfortable.
Yeah.
Because everyone I know is doing that. And then I put a little bit on the side for savings. I have no life insurance outside the Army, and great. But but that's nothing. Sorry, it's nothing special.
Well, and the biggest reason they'll probably give is, well, I wouldn't know what else to do with my money if I didn't put it here.
Sure.
Right? Because nobody's going to come and spoon feed you and give you all these other options of how to keep money under your control, because it doesn't benefit anybody else for you to keep money under your control.
That's right.
Only
you.
It only benefits you and the people you contract with for private lending. Like, how many people have we benefited through private lending? So we do benefit other people by keeping our money under our control. But I think that's it. So if people have fears about, well, I really just don't know what else I would do with my money, let's talk. Because, infinite banking goes far beyond just whole life insurance. It's a completely different way of thinking. It's the beginning, but it's not the end. Let's just say that.
And Nelson touches upon that in Becoming Your Own Banker when he talks about his buddy who had some raw land and had a cash crunch, needed to sell it. Nelson bought that parcel for, cents on the dollar, and he knew it was worth, this is something he knew about. He knew raw land, right? So invest in what you know. And that's what Nelson taught us in that book. And that's what he did. And then he did it again a certain amount of time later. Same dude, need more cash. And same thing. And Nelson had capital that he could get at in life insurance contracts.
Yeah. And I don't know anything about the guy that he bought that land from, but maybe that guy had a poor mindset. He was making decisions from a position of necessity because he was poor with his money. He was a poor steward of it and didn't grow it to the point that he had access to capital. He could get through a rough patch. He could go make money while he's sleeping. So it forced him to make decisions out of a position of necessity instead of a position of strength, which Nelson was able to do because he had access to capital.
That's right.
Yeah. You cannot underscore that enough, I think, is having capital allows you to make decisions from a position of strength, which if you aren't worried about losing your standard of living or your family, putting food on the table for your family and providing for them and all that, if you don't have to worry about that, you won't be put into a corner to make decisions you otherwise wouldn't make just because, I got to have the money. I have to have that. I can't lose that job. I can't lose this deal. I can't lose that contract. Like I have to have it. So I have to make decisions I would otherwise not even consider. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's critically important. It's something I think you don't realize until you're doing it, till you're doing IBC. I was looking at the amount of financial value I've been able to create in just a few years by just redirecting money I already had that was going elsewhere. Now I can control that money. And that is, and I've said this before, but it has completely changed the way I think and the way I see the landscape of the financial world that we touch. And it gives me, I just think, excellent perspective, having done both sides of the deal. I did the conventional stuff for still the majority of my adult life, right? Mm-hmm. I did the boring old stuff, but yeah, the position of strength, man, I couldn't have said any better. It's super powerful and allows you to change not only your own life, but you can affect other people's lives with that capital too, in a positive way.
Yeah, for sure.
Which we've done.
Yep. So if anybody wants to, we're obviously always here to talk about infinite banking because, that's what we do. And like I said, that's the foundation. That's the starting point for everything else, is understanding infinite banking, that concept, and rethinking your thinking and using that as your foundation. But on top of that, we have quite a bit of history in the private lending world. So if people want to have conversations about that and other opportunities where we put our money, we're always happy to share. Like, hey, this is what we do. It's worked for us. If anybody else wants to explore those options too, they're free to. So we're pretty open, I think, about that. I may not tell you how much I put where, but I'll certainly tell you where I do put my money and why I put it there. Yeah.
And of course, it's not to be confused with any kind of investment advice or anything like that. It's just kind of free chicken. I hate saying that.
Free
it's just some free chicken.
Stop saying it then.
I know. But it's sharing, right? I wouldn't know what I know now had you not shared some things. You wouldn't know what you know if someone else hadn't shared some things. So
exactly.
I really like paying it forward, especially for people that are looking to kind of secede from this regime that we have. Yeah, you don't have to max out your 401k and IRA to become wealthy. In fact, it's probably not going to help you become as wealthy as you otherwise could if you were seeking other opportunities that you would see if you had money you could touch.
And I don't think, it depends on your definition of wealthy. I don't think that's a path to wealth, period.
No, we agree on that definition, don't we? I tell people I measure wealth with, either how much income do you have coming in that is being created while you sleep, right?
Yeah.
Meaning, can you quit your W-2, 1099, whatever you're doing, whatever other business you're in, can you quit that and still have money coming in, like an annuitized payment that's coming in from this thing and this thing and this thing? Do you have that? That's wealthy to me. And I shared about this on Facebook. I have clients moving to Costa Rica.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
They're going to run their business from there.
Oh, Puerto Rico or Costa Rica?
Costa Rica.
And what's the benefit there?
I don't know. It's beautiful. It's great scuba dive. I know it's a great.
Oh, so it's not for like tax purposes, like Puerto Rico is.
I'd have to reach out and ask him. He'd actually be a pretty awesome guest to have. Actually, retired Air Force guy and operator. But anyway,
that's a good start.
Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah.
But anyway, they were down there. I've been following their little journey, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, they're gonna get a property under contract down there, and they're gonna run their business from there. I think homeschool the children, or maybe the children have a school or something.
Nice.
But whatever. But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah. I'm jealous, man. It's the sun's out. I can see a little blue sky, and the grass has started to get a little green. The trees are ready to bud as soon as we get above 60 again, I think.
We've mowed our grass 3 times.
I hate you, but thanks.
It's super green too. I got some nice fescue down here. What do you guys have? Rye?
I'm not a
grass
grass guy. I don't know. It's green. So
I'm a big lawn guy.
I'm not. I mean, I like a nice lawn. But like I had a neighbor, although he took it a little too far, but one of the neighbors complained about his yard, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm raising kids, not grass." So he also parked his minivan on his front lawn. So told you, he took it a little too far, but yeah, I like a nice lawn. I just don't know much about it.
Okay.
Yeah. See, Paul knows all that manly man stuff, cars, weapons, yard work, like all that stuff. I know enough to get by. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I can edge and everything.
Oh, I can edge. I love edging.
Okay.
I mean,
there you go. So that's
people
manly.
who don't edge, that irritates me. I'm like, finish the job, man.
Yeah, it looks like crap.
It looks like crap. It really does.
I might actually do that after we get off this recording.
Yeah.
Get some edging to do.
All right.
Well,
Well,
anyway,
I think we wrapped it up.
cool.
So yeah, that's good. Just think about, the effort it requires to stay poor or build wealth. It's really the same effort. You're just directing that effort in different ways and by choice versus by force. That's how I would say it.
And I like Netflix.
I mean, I get it free with my cell phone plan. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have
sweet.
it.
But yeah, you are very frugal.
Well,
But,
I got ticked off at Netflix a couple years ago and canceled
Sure.
wholesale.
Yeah. But there are people, and I'm not disparaging this, but that watch college football all day on Saturday. That's all they do for an entire day is watch college football. I don't care
I can't.
about any of it.
I can't sit and watch that much football. That much anything. Yeah.
I watched the Super Bowl this year. It was the only game I watched for NFL, and it was great.
Yeah, because the Chiefs were in it and they won.
The Chiefs won, and
That's right.
I got some football to watch, and I got to watch it for free. I streamed it somehow, I guess.
Yep.
And but you maintain your interest, but it doesn't have to be 4 hours every night of Netflix. There could be an hour of reading, Nelson's 92-page book, or
Sure.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, or some other book to get you in the right mindset, so you don't have to be an employee your whole life.
Right.
Want to be.
Exactly. So if you need any other recommendations on books, just reach out to us. We got plenty.
Yeah, I'm behind too, man. I don't have time to read right now.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I know. Well, baseball season's about to start and life gets busy. I don't think life ever gets not busy, but Maybe one day.
Well, if I didn't have to do like 6 hours in the city every day, it would be less busy. Or 8 hours.
Retire.
Whatever it is.
Retire. Just be done with it.
It's the paperwork is somewhere in between somebody and somebody. So it's
all right.
It's on the way.
Well, I can't wait, man. I'm gonna celebrate with you when that happens.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a big party.
Yeah.
Big party.
Well, all right. Let's wrap it up, man. Good talk. We'll be back next week. And hey, until then, control your capital.
Or somebody else will.
Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. If you'd like to have a conversation with us to see how you can become your own banker, or if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to tackle on a future episode, please send us an email to davidandpaul@theibcguys.com.
And subscribe and leave us a review if you're on Apple. Follow and leave us a 5-star review if you're on Spotify. And please share this with your friends. We'll see you next week.